2010, Tudor started producing the Heritage Chrono line, which this watch is a part of. This specific example is on loan from Midwest jewelers and estate buyers. This is the Instagram account for the watches they have for sale, like this one. A big thanks to them for loaning this to me. As Tudor put it, this watch was a part of the brand's rebirth, which began in 2007, after years of relative obscurity. It's hard to believe that now, but in 2010, when this watch was released, Tudor had disappeared from many markets. In fact, when the Heritage line started, Tudor still wasn't selling watches in the United States. The brand didn't return here until 2013. While all of this might sound like ancient horological history, the Heritage Chrono line is still in the Tudor lineup and is still sold at authorized dealers. But it seems to me that the watchmaker has all but forgotten about this collection. And that's a damn shame, because I think this is terrific. This is one of 3 watches from the Heritage Chrono collection. There's the gray, a similar black, and there's also a blue, which I used to have and I often miss. Along with the black, the gray is sometimes referred to as the home plate, because the shape of the hour markers on the dial. That's a reference to baseball, which is a boring, confusing, and delightful American sport. All of the Heritage Chrono watches have the same dimensions, movement, and dial layout. The Heritage Chrono is 42mm in diameter, 49mm long, and 13mm thick. It comes on either a woven strap or a bracelet. If you get the bracelet, which you should, the strap comes along with it. And that's pretty great because this ain't no ordinary NATO strap. This is actually a single pass strap with spring bars woven in it. 10 years ago, I'd never seen a style like this before, and I haven't seen it from another brand since. On the bracelet, the watch lists for $4,525, but I know you can get these brand new for hundreds less. The Heritage Chrono is not a small watch. I wouldn't call it a large watch either. I think it fits nicely on my 7-inch wrist. For me, there are different expectations for chronograph dimensions. It's one thing to have a 42mm by 13mm chronograph, it's another if we're talking about a 3-hand diver. The engine in here is an ETA 2892 movement with a Dupois-Depraz chronograph module. I'm a bit out of my element when it comes to discussing the technical merits of modular chronographs, so all I can tell you is that it works. The Heritage Chrono is nearly a replica of the first chronograph Tudor ever made, the 7031 Monte Carlo. The 1970 manually wound racing chronograph was the colorful cousin to the Rolex Daytona, but had a much shorter lifespan. The Monte Carlo was Tudor's first chronograph, but it certainly wasn't its last. In fact, Tudor has been on a chronograph streak lately. In 2017, following on the success of the Black Bay divers, Tudor released the first Black Bay chronograph. Without discontinuing this Heritage Chrono, Tudor added a new chronograph with the same layout, but a very different style and a different movement. Instead of the ETA-based movement from the Heritage line, Tudor switched to a modified version of the Breitling B01. With the new chronographs being from the Black Bay line, Tudor also gave the watches the signature snowflake hour hand. I think the Black Bay chronographs are great. They're technically impressive, well-priced, and they look good. But when I see them next to this Tudor Heritage Chrono, the new references look a little boring. And I realize that's probably what a lot of people want, something less quirky, but they just seem less fun to me. I also can't get into the snowflake hour hand on a chronograph. I find it awkward. Compare the Black Bay hands to the hands on this watch. It's not even close for me. These look better, and because they're not flat, they are legible from more angles. One of my favorite aspects from the Heritage Chrono is the rotatable 12-hour bezel. It's an unusual feature on a chronograph. Most common would be a tachymeter. But why I like the 12-hour bezel so much is that it allows me to track a second time zone. It's pretty simple. At the moment, I'm on Pacific Daylight Saving Time. I work with people in Birmingham, UK, which is 8 hours ahead of me. So I turn the bezel so that 8 is at the top. Now when I want to see what time it is in Birmingham, when I want to see what time it is in that place, I just read the hour from the bezel. The finishing on the watch is good and reminiscent of how Rolex used to do things. I'm specifically thinking of the lugs. They have angled brushing on top, which I prefer to the straight north to south brushing that Rolex does now. They also have large polished bevels on the edges. And the bracelet is pleasantly free of fake rivets. I'm looking at you, Black Bays. I would love to see Tudor revisit or update the Heritage Chrono line. They could keep the funky Monte Carlo look and swap out for the new Breitling movements, but I don't really expect that. My best guess is that sometime soon these will disappear from the Tudor website, and soon after that they'll disappear from retailers as well. So it goes. The Heritage Chrono watch was at the vanguard of Tudor's rebirth, a rebirth which seems like a great success 10 years later. So I think this watch has a small place in the history of the brand and the history of the industry. But more importantly, years later, I still love wearing the Heritage Chronos. And while Tudor might forget about these watches, I certainly won't.
You moved this? And did you know it had a sticker on it?
When I
Did you know this had a sticker on this?
Yeah, I knew that.